For years, it's been the white whale of the tech world, right? The subject of just endless rumors and speculation. A foldable iPhone. Now, the reports are all over the map, but today we're going to sift through all that noise and unpack what the analysts and the supply chain sources are actually saying about Apple's next big potential game changer.
But before we get into all the cool tech, let's just start with the one thing I know you want to know, the price. And the rumors here are absolutely wild, which brings us to the real question of this whole discussion. How much is too much? How much would you really be willing to pay?
Okay, so here's how we're going to break this all down. We'll start with that massive price tag and what could possibly be driving it. Then we'll get into the design and what it might look like. We'll peek under the hood at the tech inside, and after that, we'll talk about the timeline. And finally, ask the big one. Could this thing completely reshape the market?
So first up, the $2,500 question. Seriously, analysts are in a full-blown price war trying to predict what this will cost, and, well, their estimates could not be more different.
Let's just put the biggest, scariest number right out there. Yep, one of the most prominent analysts, Ming-Chi Kuo, has actually floated a potential price as high as $2,500. I mean, think about that. That's more than double the cost of a brand new Pro Max iPhone today.
Wow.
So why are the predictions so far apart? It's fascinating, and it really comes down to one single critical component, the hinge. You see, on one side, you have analysts saying the cost of all these premium parts is going to push the price way over $2,000. But then, on the other side, you've got reports that Apple is figuring out ways to make that super complex hinge for a lot cheaper, which could bring the phone's final price down below $1,500. That's a $1,000 swing.
And this just puts it all into perspective, right? You can see just how massive that price range is. Look, there's the current iPhone 16 Pro Max at about $1,200. Then you have Samsung's Galaxy Z Fold at almost $1,900. So Apple's Foldable could either slide in just a little below its main competitor, or it could just blow way past it into this entirely new ultra-luxury tier.
Okay, so let's imagine you're actually willing to pay that kind of premium. What are you getting for your money? Let's move on and start unfolding the actual design.
So, the overwhelming consensus is that Apple is working on what's called a book-style foldable. Now, this isn't a flip phone, okay? Think of it more like a regular iPhone on the outside that you open up like a book to reveal this much larger, almost tablet-sized display on the inside.
And here are some of the rumored specs that really bring that design to life. We're talking about a nearly 8-inch screen on the inside, which is just huge for a phone. But look at that thickness. It's supposedly going to be incredibly thin when it's unfolded, under 5 millimeters. And to pull that off, it would almost have to use a strong but lightweight titanium alloy casing.
But here it is. This might just be Apple's secret weapon. As Ming-Chi Kuo points out here, if Apple can pull this off, if they can deliver a foldable screen without that visible, distracting crease that we see on pretty much every other device out there, that would be a massive, massive win. It could totally justify them being so late to the game.
A beautiful design is one thing, but what's going to be powering it? Let's take a quick look under the hood and really try to understand the technology and the strategy behind it all.
Now, to make a device this thin, it looks like they're going to have to make some compromises. Sources are suggesting Apple is going to ditch Face ID to save that precious internal space, and instead bring back Touch ID, integrating it right into the power button. We're also hearing about a simplified dual-lens camera system and a new kind of high-density battery that's supposedly being borrowed from the future ultra-thin iPhone 17.
But what's the real point of this giant screen? I mean, it's not just for watching bigger videos. The big strategy here seems to be about creating the first true AI-powered multitasking device. That huge display would give you the screen real estate to interact with an AI assistant on one side, while it's actively helping you with a task, like navigating a map, on the other. All happening at the same time.
All right, so it all sounds pretty impressive, I gotta say. But when could we actually get our hands on one? Let's turn to the timeline and get into the waiting game.
So, according to all the supply chain reports, the roadmap is actually becoming a lot clearer. Apple is expected to lock in the final specs by the middle of 2025, and then officially kick off the project right after that. And if everything goes to plan, mass production could begin in the last quarter of 2026, which would point to a launch either late that year or maybe in early 2027.
So when this device finally does arrive, what happens then? Is it just going to be another phone, or could this thing actually reshape the entire market as we know it? If you look at this, you can see the initial shipment goals for 2026 are what you might call cautiously optimistic.
Analysts are projecting somewhere between 3 and 5.5 million units. Now, that's a really strong start, for sure, but it's still just a fraction of what a typical new iPhone sells in its first year.
But, and this is a big but, here's the long-term vision. By 2027, with a second-generation model apparently already in the works, total foldable iPhone shipments could surge to 20 million units. Now, that shows Apple isn't just testing the waters here. They see this as a major future product line.
Which, of course, brings us to our final and most critical question. Will Apple's Foldable become an essential, mainstream device that completely redefines how we use our phones? Or will its revolutionary design and super high price tag make it more of a niche, luxury product? Something kind of like the Vision Pro. That right there is the multi-billion-dollar question Apple is betting on.